As promised, we're going to continue our conversation around productivity and presence with a new tool called 5 gears. This visual metaphor will help us to understand that different gears serve different purposes. And when we can match gears with those around us, our productivity and presence will increase. That's what we're going to talk about. And if you'll hang around till the end, I'll let you know how I was able to manage those back-to-back 10-milers last week while we were out of town. Let's get into it. Welcome to Leadership on the Run. Some of you may have learned to drive with a stick shift or manual transmission. And so you know that each of the gears serves a purpose. So using the 5 gears tool, I'm going to go through and define the purpose of each of the gears and how it relates to productivity and presence. 5th gear is focus mode. Deep work. Door closed, don't bother me. Super productive. 4th gear is task mode. Meetings, multitasking, most of what we do during our day on the job. Productive. 3rd gear is social mode. Chit chat, small talk, presence with other people. You can easily slide into 4th gear or 2nd gear from 3rd gear. And this is where most influence is created. 2nd gear is connect mode. Deeper conversation, slow, no phones, eye contact, generally one-on-one, super present. 1st gear is recharge mode. This looks different for different people. Might be exercise, reading, meditating. It could be by yourself or with other people. And that's likely dictated by whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Reverse is responsive mode. That's for backing up or apologizing when necessary. Each of the gears serves a purpose, and we need to learn how to shift from one to another. A couple of things that I've seen over and over again. First is that we tend to wake up and jump right into 4th gear. We grab our phone, check our email and texts, make sure the world has survived without us while we slept. You know, if you compare that to your sports car, if you jumped into that in the morning and tried to start off in 4th gear, while theoretically possible, it's likely that you're going to burn something out pretty quickly. Many of us wrap up our day and come home still in 4th gear, right about the time when our spouse might be ready for some 2nd or 3rd gear time. This is where matching gears can really elevate your presence. When you believe that your agenda is more important than others, there's going to be a disconnect. So watch out for it and be intentional to match gears with the person in front of you. And then a warning about 5th gear. You can't stay there all day. You have to be available to other people at some point. So while 5th gear work is really important, you can't just hide out in your office all day and call it 5th gear. Now that you know what each gear is and that it's important to match gears with those around you, let's talk about triggers and transitions. You need to put into place some intentional actions that will help you to transition or shift into the different gears. Let me give you an example. Let's say you've got a meeting scheduled for 2 o'clock. Set an alarm for 1:55. When that alarm goes off, you can begin to think about that meeting that's coming up. Stop what you're doing and start focusing on the person who's coming at 2 o'clock. Then when they arrive, you can greet them, make them feel welcome, make eye contact, have a little bit of 3rd gear socializing time, and then transition into 4th gear task mode. That's way better than knocking out one more email while they stand in your doorway thinking they may have gotten the time wrong. Another example is to pick out a landmark along your commute home that you can use as a transition point to get out of fourth gear and begin to transition and think about how you can best engage and be present with your family when you pull into the driveway or walk through the front door. Your 100 challenge this week, and remember the 100 challenge is to help us to move toward being 100% healthy in our leadership. So your 100 challenge is to consider your calendar and whether you're appropriately scheduling time for each of the gears. Is there any first gear time on your calendar for recharge? Super important. Get intentional about scheduling your days like this for a month and see the difference that it'll make. For your X challenge, share this with someone close to you and get some accountability around matching gears with those around you and how you're doing with your transitions. I'd love to see your thoughts on this. So be sure to comment below. Maybe let me know what gear is easiest for you to access and maybe which one is hardest for you. For those of you who have come along for the run, it's been a rough week. Started off Sunday with a massive rainstorm that pushed my workout to the afternoon, much hotter part of the day. Afternoon runs are generally no good for me. No mojo. On Monday, the Hansen plan calls for an SOS workout. Stands for something of substance. This particular Monday, I was transitioning away from intervals and into what they call a strength workout. This one was 6 1-mile repeats. Well, somewhere in the 4th mile, I pulled something of substance and had to cut it short. That was a bummer. Tuesday's a rest day. Wednesday's another SOS, this time marathon pace for 8 miles. Couldn't run marathon pace because of that pulled muscle, but I thought I'd at least get the miles in until I hit mile 8 and that muscle just seized up. So had to cut that one short. Thursday I had some work conflicts, so it was a forced rest day, probably for the good. And here I am today. Easy 8-miler. I can feel it, but I'm running slow enough to manage it. I think since I've already seemingly wasted this week, I'm going to modify tomorrow's long run to be longer but slower than called for. And we'll see how that works out. So, about those back-to-back 10-milers last week while we were out of town. Well, we were way out in the country. I kind of scoped it out as we were riding in. And so I asked my wife to follow me in the truck while I did this 5-mile loop. I know, she's an angel. But man, dogs seemingly everywhere. Finally at mile 5, I literally had to jump in the truck. And so I ended up finishing out that 10-miler by running this stretch right in front of where we were staying. About a half-mile stretch, just going back and forth. But I got my 10 in. The next day, I didn't even venture out. I just did that half-mile stretch over and over again. So I got them in, but it was just one notch above the treadmill. Let me know in the comments below what you're training for, how it's going, your successes, your challenges. Love to hear from you. Well, that's going to do it for today. Thanks for making it to the end of the video, and I'll see you next time. Until then, keep moving. Remember, no one gets better by accident. Great leaders are intentional.